Mass Effect, the board game. That's what most of you are going to say when you see Rogue Angels by Sun Tzu Games. That's what most are going to say when they play Rogue Angels. And they're right. Rogue Angels has a lot going on for itself to stand on its own two legs, but there's no denying the inspiration and the similarities both in the look and feel and world, but also in much of the gameplay structure. In this review, I'll be telling you how this game is in the top 3 of a certain list of mine. I'll tell you about what I like, what I have problems with, and what I wish was better. But before that, please note that what you are seeing and what I played is a prototype. A prototype not just in the components, but in the total amount of game. There are several features and many options not included. Most notably, many of the characters are not present, only 4 here of 16, and a big feature of the Legacy campaign, personal stories, are not included here as well. I've seen a bit of both outside of the prototype though, and it looks really good, but do note that obviously things can and will be updated as time goes on from what you see here. Also note that this is a review copy sent to me for review purposes and no payment was made for this review. At the time of posting this review, the campaign is live on Kickstarter and there is a link to the campaign page down in the description below. Lastly, note that I will keep this review spoiler-free of any story bits except for Mission 2, where I will lead up to, but not show, the first choice you are presented with. Alright, with that in mind, let's dive in. What makes a good story? Is it the characters? If so, Rogue Angels has a good story. Each character has their own backstory, a story that you then unfold in a custom way, their own faction standings, their own deck of cards that helps make them unique, a unique skill, and various strengths and weaknesses. Most importantly though, they have a voice, your voice. At times in this game's story, you will have to vote, and your vote matters. Even if others vote differently, characters will note that you opted for the other choice, and that's reflected within the game in various ways. Their varying abilities and stories really help cement this as a team of misfits, and I got a pretty strong Guardians of the Galaxy vibe. That's after Guardians of the Galaxy as a team started working better together, but still with that random group of heroes now together sense. Everyone has a role to play, and you feel that you have the tools at your disposal to actually act out that role. The inclusion of many opportunities to buff each other and work together really enhances this. Perhaps a good story is more than just good characters though. What about story scope and growth? Well, Rogue Angels has this too, accomplishing each in various ways. For scope, the amount of missions you go on, or rather, noticing all the missions you don't go on, really helps establish this. You'll go from far out refueling stations to alien planets and other locations I won't even spoil. Just know that the prototype alone has 53 unique and different maps, and the final version plans to have over 80. Growth, though, comes from both the main story and the stakes at play, but also from your character. I'd like to talk about character growth briefly, as I believe it's something that a lot of you will take interest in. I've already mentioned the personal story arcs that you help craft, but the leveling system is honestly fantastic. First of all, there are no levels per se, instead you just constantly grow in various ways. For instance, you have a personality diagram. That's the lower left area of the character board with 4 colored shapes in a square. Based on your action choices, accomplishments, anything really might have you increase one of these. This helps your character reflect your actual playstyle and temperament, as each one provides a token for that area. Those tokens can then be spent on your action cards to boost their effects. So you might help your team more, or heal better, or move faster, or hack better, or shoot better, etc. Now, if it ended there, then that'd already be a very nice leveling system, but it goes further. Those action cards can actually be upgraded themselves so that you can enhance this boost effect, change a boost effect, or even add whole new ones. Your rifle is your rifle, but what you can do with your rifle as you grow can grow as well, or your hacking tool or whatever. This growth can even go to your personal abilities, where you can add or change them, and then there is still more. Your relationship with various peoples and factions is tracked on a personal level, so you yourself can grow or worsen relationships with them. This is where I say, but wait, there's more. Because there is more. You can also get whole new cards to replace some of your old cards. Add to that companions, ship upgrades, and unique things that happen based on your relationship standing, and this all accumulates into a streamlined, pleasant, and incredibly satisfying growth curve. Maybe next mission you'll get a new card upgrade, and what you choose gets you a new companion or pet. Perhaps your faction standing will decrease and something bad will happen, or perhaps you get a new personality bonus. You're always getting something, and each one feels impactful. And to think, that's not even the highlight for story. There's one more thing I wish to discuss with you for this story section. You see, a story can have all of this. Great characters, a cool setting, a wonderful growth and scope, but if the pacing is bad, the story is bad. Pacing is really hard for board games. Most often, you game once or twice a week if you're lucky. If you sit there and play every day, you usually have a bit of story and then hours-long combat scenarios followed by more story dumps. Perhaps the developers were really in on their A game and got a bit of story in there via some card text or something. Here's where I talk about how Rogue Angels is now in my top 3 campaign games, sitting alongside Teneris and Aeon Trespass Odyssey. This game implements story in such a satisfying way. It honestly feels like playing an RPG. First off is the storybook. Yes, just one single book that contains the story, interactions, and mission setup. No flipping through 3 books here. You have some succinct prose, brief descriptions, and even some imagery to accommodate the story bit, and then it'll lead you into a mission or some choices and such. The mission, however, might be a short 10-minute thing, like go over to this secured room and find out what's inside. When you get inside, that part of the mission is over, and some story commences again. Depending on the action taken here, based on whatever is inside that room, you go to 1 or 2 missions after, or perhaps your mission even ends right there. You then do the next bit. This is fantastic. It's so wonderful and easy to play. A single book and short sessions that make sense to play within that story. Each mission is actually several parts of the mission, and you'll do some of those parts depending on a variety of things with story throughout, and that's really nice. It makes for a constant stream of both, with neither taking up too much time, and you stay focused, stay interested, and also have lots of opportunities, should the need arise, to take a break. Is the pizza ready? Wrap up the current mission part and go and have a nice clean part to step back into once your bellies are full of delicious pizza. No having to remember whose turn it is or what the plan was or anything like that. In fact, the whole save feature is super nice. Everyone gets their own envelope, you put everything in, and you start clean each mission. In fact, in the full game after funding, you'll be able to save it in the ship box for even better organization. With the map being a spiral-bound book in the envelope, and the single story/mission book setup and teardown is super easy. And the variety of missions you go on, really nice. You'll have patrols moving around, stealth sections, escapes, disguises, team splitting, other worlds to explore, space flybys, a big variety of interactive NPCs, choices to make, votes to take, and more. It's all really impressive stuff and very well done, and all without any additional rules to remember or odd subsystems to track. If I had any complaints about the scope of missions, it's really a comment on the overall look of the game. Things seem a bit too drab for me. I don't really mean even in a color choice, but in a design choice. Hallways are a bit too clean and samey. Jungle tiles tend to look like other jungle tiles, or snow or whatever. This is more of a style thing than anything else. But compared to weapons and gear and map tiles I've seen in other games, this is far from fantastical. And with that, let's move on to gameplay. Obviously, as I said, you're mostly going through the book, reading a bit of story, making decisions, setting up and playing a mission part, then repeating. That's the high level flow of it. In mission, however, there's a lot of really great things. There's a turn timer that's scaled by player, speaking of which, there's a minimum of 2 characters, so solo you'll be handling 2, though that's not an issue to do, I promise. That turn timer really keeps things intense, and every mission I played seemed to be pretty close. It was never not something to keep in mind as we all planned out our turns. Turns, by the way, are open in order, so you all have to activate once before you can activate again, and when you activate, you do just 2 things. This keeps the turns moving fast and is really nice, and since the order doesn't matter, you are all discussing the overall plan, keeping you constantly invested in what's going on. This is especially true because enemies activate after every character, so they are constantly updating. Though, thankfully, this is also smooth, as only the 2 lowest numbered enemies activate at any given time, and their AI is known as well, meaning you know exactly which 2 enemies will activate and what they will do, so you can really plan things out with your team. You'll be saying stuff like, okay, you move there and open that door, that'll trigger this enemy to come toward you, and then he'll be in range for me, and then I'll go next and throw my sticky grenade on him and shove him into his buddy before he explodes. This is really a thing we discussed at my table, by the way. Okay, so back to 2 actions. Those are play an action card, concentrate to gain focus, and rest. Focus is used to re-roll, and you get these from things other than concentrate action, so you'll often not feel too luck dependent. Additionally, several facings of the dice give you an option to pick from, so you could grab a shield or a +1 for your action, for example. One of the coolest things with the dice, I feel, are the move facings where you can actually gain movement from them. This is super fun and risky, or just nice to have sometimes. You might, for example, be out of range or line of sight for what you want to do, but if the card you want to use allows you to roll dice, you could risk using it and hope you get the movement needed to pull it off. And trust me, it's super satisfying when you pull that off. However, the one downside to the whole dice buffing mechanic is that your basic move action is just one space and a die roll to add more movement. This is very close to being roll to move, and while there is enough facings with movement to make it rare that you don't get more movement, it still means that you are at a chance to move a 1, 2, or 3 spaces, and moving a third of your potential just feels bad. Since you have only 2 actions, you could have your turn where you just move 2 spaces, which feels super uncool when that happens. It doesn't happen often, but it did happen to us and we definitely noted it. The only other oddity I found with the dice is that you pick a target for your card after rolling your dice. While it's a nice strategic element and allows that move situation I just discussed, I find it a bit too gamey. That is, it doesn't really make sense in my head thematically. You swing hard and then decide who you're swinging at? That's a bit silly to me. The ability cards I keep mentioning, by the way, work on a cooldown mechanic that is lovely. Resting moves all cards to the left by 1, and you get a free rest at the end of your turn as well, meaning if you really wanted to, you could rest 3 times total in your turn, getting back almost all of your cards. Wounds clog this up, but they can also straight up return cards to your hand if there's already a card there, which is actually kind of a nice bonus. You can also place cards in slower spots or higher number spots than you normally have to, which is particularly useful in 2 situations. Perhaps you really want to use a card but the spot is already taken. It makes a nice decision point on the player if you want to use it but at a higher cost. Additionally, you have ongoing buffs that are only active as long as they are in play, so you actively want to place them as high as you can so that they are active longer. I really liked this interplay between the cooldown and other systems. Now we gotta talk about hacking and interacting though, as it's the last major system at play here. Opening a locked door, hacking a console, doing an interaction like this involves a push your luck mechanism that you get better at over the course of the mission. You have a blind bag and tokens of various colors in that bag, 8 of 3 colors and 4 whites which are wild. The objective is to get 3 of a single color. The 3 you eventually get are not returned to the bag, meaning that the other colors are now more likely to be picked. However, if you ever draw 2 whites, you immediately fail and put the pulls back into the bag. Often this takes more than one person to accomplish, and I enjoyed the group effort this mechanic creates as we all work together to get a door unlocked or a safe opened or whatever. Now it's about time to wrap up this review. Next is a few noteworthy things I wanted to critique on. You get pets, like actual animal companions at times, and they are a super cool feature. However, there is an option each one has to be let go, and when you do let them go, they do a whole lot, but then they are not returned to you. In the fluff text, it says they literally die, and I very much dislike that. Please let me release my pet to sow chaos, and then he runs off to live his best life he deserves like the good boy he is. Seeing the dreaded "they die after this" makes me never want to ever select that option. The attention to detail throughout the game is really nice. The prose you encounter perfectly matches your actions, which was nice, and even in the instances where the outcome is the same, the characters obviously speak a bit differently because of how you got there. Additionally, your basic actions match your character. If you're a snake alien, you won't see a human in your basic move action card and stuff like that. It really helps show that the developers are focused on every bit of this game, and I appreciated that. The ease of learning is super pleasant. The game has no hyper advanced or thick rules and systems, and instead lets the ones they have interact in ways that make you plan and think. And knew what they do and where we were, and we felt as if we had screwed up and there was no way we weren't going to get spotted. But through discussion and careful planning, we figured out a way where one character could go, do a specific thing to draw their attention, and then at the end of their turn, have another player do something before they then activated themselves, and if they did one specific thing, we'd avoid being seen. We felt so good accomplishing this, and it worked, and it was lovely. This is strategic because of a well-designed system, not because of the amount of systems the game can throw at you, and I really appreciated that in a game. Also, there are some smart features. First of all, the story literally eases you into the game, which was nice, and in fact, your character cards have a specific side on the back for the first mission that has explanations written right on them. They're tutorial sides. Most games just put some useless art of the character on the back or something like that, so it was great to have the devs use this space to help ease you in more. If I had one more final gripe, it'd be my preference for miniatures. How I'd love to eventually see a version of this game with full miniatures. The final game will have hero miniatures, but enemies are standees with some stats on them. I'd be perfectly happy personally though, looking at a card for those stats, but that's just me. Like the scope of this game, it's all calculated, and having the enemies as standees, which will be far nicer than my folded paper here of course, helps keep the scope and prices in check. Honestly, there's not much more to say. Playing Rogue Angels has been an absolute delight, and we loved our play sessions of this. It's easy to table, easy to play, and easy to enjoy, and a standout in the narrative campaign space. I highly recommend Rogue Angels. Once again, you'll find it linked down in the description below, right below that like and subscribe button. If you enjoyed this review and found it helpful, I'd greatly appreciate a comment letting me know. I do these videos for you, the viewer, so knowing it was helpful is immensely rewarding for me. If you'd like to support my future work further, you can find a link to my Patreon or the YouTube join button down there also, where you'll see behind the scenes insights into what's coming up on the channel and more about me, along with some other cool benefits. But regardless of any decision you make now, thank you so very much for watching. I'll talk to you guys again real soon with more reviews, news, and unboxings. Have a great day, guys. Bye.